Welcome to 32 and 32, where we count.
Anyway, that's beside the point. At the end of the day, it's a business.
If you're the Rams, you are officially coming off the absolute worst performance in the Super Bowl ever. I think Robert Kraft is peas in someone else's pod.
I mean, yeah, Super Bowl wins are so old. I mean, the rings are probably to dust right now. So,
Not about the Eagles today. We're talking about the Bears.
Yeah. So, as usual, let's take a look first at their free agent signings. Thanks for watching, folks. That is today's analysis of the Minnesota Vikings. Welcome to 32 and 32, where we cover one team every day for 32 straight days leading up to the NFL kickoff on Thursday Night Football. Today's team is the New Orleans Saints.
Yes. Who that? Who that say they're going to beat them Saints?
Everybody in the league.
Well, everybody else in the league is wrong.
Excuse me. You're right. Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
Anywho, New Orleans. We need not to say what happened at the end of last season.
I'm not going to talk about it. I think I got a little of that frustration now when we talk about the Rams.
A moment of silence. Okay. So, as you can't tell, we're Saints fans.
Yeah, that's no secret.
Okay, so, where do we begin?
Let's begin with how stacked this roster is.
They were pretty loaded last season.
And the constant moves Mickey Loomis has been making for the past, 3 years? I mean, since, Kamara's draft class came through. It's just Mickey Loomis has not stopped working, and Mickey Loomis is constantly evolving that team.
Actually, I would argue the draft before that, when they got Rankins, Amiata, and that was Thomas. That was the year Thomas was drafted.
Oh, that's true.
And Von Bell.
That's actually very true. I mean, that was actually like the birth of like that Saints resurgence.
So I know that a lot of people like to praise the 17 draft, but the 16 draft was just as good. It just gets overlooked because I mean the 17 draft had two rookie of the years.
That's very true. And also, let's talk about the mass improvement of the Saints defense, which at one point the Saints defense historically put up the worst numbers in the league. I mean, you had a rock star offense, but the defense was just completely flat. And it's just over the past couple of seasons, this defense has evolved, and this defense has become absolutely volatile. You add, Demario Davis. I mean, you got Marshawn Lattimore. You got Marcus Williams. You add Marcus Davenport. You got Cam Jordan. You got Sheldon Rankins on defensive line, who has emerged as one of the better nose tackles in the league if he can be healthy next season. I mean, we don't know when we're going to see him because he did tear his Achilles last season. You end up getting Alex Anzalone, which he was injured for a majority of his rookie season. He did really show up pretty well last season. You got AJ Klein. I mean, you got Von Bell. You got PJ Williams if he can be consistent. It's just this team is just completely stacked. And it's like a lot of people are saying, I'm saying there should be no excuse as to why the Saints should not be in the Super Bowl. There's like no excuse of why the Saints should miss the Super Bowl next season.
And the way my breakdown of New Orleans this offseason is they're one of the few teams out there that improved both in free agency and the draft.
I mean, though they didn't have a first-round pick in this draft, they still did pretty good for themselves. I mean, can we go to the draft real quick? Because they did add a couple of key parts in their draft. I mean, they only had 5 draft picks, but I mean, they ended up getting Eric McCoy to compete with Nick Easton for the starting center position. Especially after the apparent retirement of Max Unger. They ended up getting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who was a force in the secondary for Dan Mullen at Florida. And also, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson played for one of the better defensive minds in the nation in Todd Grantham. You end up getting Alize Mack at tight end to add depth to your tight end position, along with Jared Cook, who they got in the free agency out of Oakland, who was an all-pro tight end. to also to give help to Josh Hill and into the offensive line and to the receiving game for Drew Brees. So this Saints team is improving on all cylinders.
Now, I also want to touch up, seeing how we're already talking about their draft. I want to look at Saquon Hampton, who they drafted out of Rutgers. Now, they drafted 2 safeties in this draft, and that was interesting in and of itself. However, it seems like Chauncey Gardner Johnson is actually seen as a hybrid, so he can move around in the backfield. That does not make things necessarily better for Hampton, who has a long shot at making this roster. Yeah, I can see him being. To me, it looks like the Saints got him with an ideal for
maybe special teams.
Special teams,
kind of like
he's fast and he's aggressive.
Like use him like kind of like a Justin Hardy.
Yeah, absolutely. The big question is, what did they ultimately end up classifying him as? Because he's a safety, and New Orleans does not typically carry more than 6, maybe 7 defensive backs.
So it's kind of like it can go either way for Saquon Hampton.
I feel like if Saquon Hampton can just destroy it on special teams, he'll make it.
I want to go back to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson with him being a defensive hybrid. I mean, if the Saints plan on using him starting out, which it'd be kind of hard. I mean, because they already got Patrick Robinson as well. I mean, you got Marshawn Lattimore, you got Marcus Williams and Von Bell already. So, but if they do plan on using Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I feel that he'll be more of like that defensive gadget. I feel that he can be that guy that can help Dennis Allen get more creative, on the defensive side of the ball. I feel that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson can open up creativity for Coach Allen.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even was Caden Ellis. He's a
linebacker out of I think Idaho.
Idaho, which is interesting for.
And he's also another long shot to probably make the roster. He was like what, a 6th, 7th round pick.
Yeah, but I wouldn't count him out. I mean, his dad was also professional football, so he has some of that background. And I feel like players that have parents that were also in athletes have a little easier time adapting to the transitional phase.
Well, I mean, seeing what your parents went through, I mean, is something that you should be used to.
And, he is a little bit of a long shot, but I think being a linebacker, he has a better chance of making the roster than Saquon Hampton does.
But then again, Sean Payton has been known to evolve long shot players.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at what he did with guys like Lance Moore and guys like Marcus Colston. I mean, Marcus Colston was a late draft pick out of Hofstra.
Not just that, but Pierre Thomas, who was undrafted, and end up edging out Antonio Pittman, who was a 4th round pick.
So, I mean, Sean Payton, and not only that, I mean, let's go to Drew Brees. I mean, after Drew Brees, blew out his arm, his throwing arm at San Diego, I mean, he was a long shot to be on anybody's roster. I mean, Miami was looking at getting him, but, I mean, Nick Saban didn't want to take a chance on him. And, I mean, he was a long shot for anybody considering how severe his injury was. And Sean Payton took a chance, and look at Drew Brees now. Mm-hmm. So, Sean Payton has been known to take chances and has to gamble and to come out on the winning side when it comes to his long shots. So you never know. Caden Ellis might end up having a fruitful career at linebacker for the Saints.
Mm-hmm. So I'm excited for. I feel like the Saints had one of the better drafts. There was a lot of doubt towards the back end of why did they go get this player, why did they get that one. But the more you look at it, the more solid it looks.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that this Saints, when it comes to like looking at the players that they get, they are the Saints team, like the Saints front office. First and foremost, we got to give a lot of credit to their front office. And, ever since Gale lost Tom, rest in peace, Tom Benson, Gale has done an amazing job, running the team as owner. Mickey Loomis has done an incredible job at GM making the moves. I mean, him and John Dorsey have been probably the busiest GMs in the league this season.
Now, I will say this about Miss Benson, and it's going to be a little bit of a bold statement, but just watching her the last few years after Mr. Benson went on to the other side, considering how she has handled both the Saints and the Pelicans, I think she will go on to be a better owner than Mr. Benson.
I can actually second on that one. I actually agree with you on that one. Because, I mean, she's handled everything gracefully because, I mean, when the teams were passed down to her after the passing of Mr. Benson, Gail had to deal with Mr. Benson's crazy family. When I mean his family, we're talking about his kids. Running both teams and making the moves that she's made and having to deal with all the logistics around Mr. Benson's death and handling all the finances and everything that goes with, passing stuff down. I mean, she's handled it with grace, with style, with class, and with grace. And she has done a great job. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Ms. Benson goes on to be a better owner. I feel that's something that I feel that was probably Tom's dying wish, that for his wife to be a better owner than he ever was.
I think that's always whenever you pass the torch, that is always the goal in mind.
Most definitely.
So anyway, we move on. Saints free agency. I actually liked their free agency for the most part. The big question for me, and we'll get to the rest of this later, but they re-signed Teddy Bridgewater, and they re-signed him to 1 year, worth up to $12 million. That's starter money to be a backup for 1 year. Now,
I feel that was like wasted money. Now, I feel that giving Teddy Bridgewater all that money, I feel that was their way of probably playing with house money.
Well, okay. So the question is how much longer is Drew Brees going to play? I
mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this would be his last season, to be honest.
Well, I can too. So my question is, has Drew Brees told the organization something that has yet to go public?
Maybe it's something that's...
Or are they just saying, you know what, we like you, Teddy. We'll bring you back for a year and help you develop. Because he was given the opportunity to sign with Miami and be their starter.
And Miami offered him more money.
And he turned it down to sit on the bench behind Drew Brees for another year.
And I think there's something that we don't know. It's just... I mean, after seeing Teddy Bridgewater last season in his lone start against Carolina, I mean, there's a lot that Bridgewater has to improve on. There's a lot. And then not only that, I was hoping that the Saints would probably get a quarterback in this draft because I was really hoping for the Saints to get like a guy like Will Grier, a guy that if the Saints were to get somebody to lead the Saints regime, it would have to be like a quarterback coming out of college probably.
I don't know. If they're not going to go the Bridgewater route, which may or may not happen, especially after signing him to just a 1 year contract. If he is the heir apparent, as some are saying, why just a 1 year contract?
Why couldn't it be like 3 years maybe? It's like 3 years, 15 mil, or maybe 2 years, 12.5 mil. I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing numbers out there. But, I mean, you also got to look at the quarterbacks that are coming out next season. I mean,
that makes more sense.
You got Tua Tagovailoa coming out. I'm pretty sure Tua Tagovailoa is coming out. Jalen Hurts, Jake Fromm, Justin Herbert. And that's just to name a few.
Yeah, Tua is probably going to be drafted by Arizona.
I don't see Arizona doing that. What they did in this past draft, I don't see them doing that again. I feel that considering the relationship between Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, I feel that as long as Kyler's there, Cliff's going to be there. As long as Cliff's there, Kyler's going to be there. I don't see them getting Tua, but I do like your sarcasm.
No, I think the Saints will have a better shot at someone maybe like Justin Herbert.
Now, what surprised me was that
Jake Fromm.
Going into this past draft, I remember early in the football season, last season, Justin Herbert was projected to be a number 1 pick at one point in Kuiper's big board. But Herbert ended up deciding in the last minute that he was going to come back to Oregon for his senior year, which I feel was a good move because, in my opinion, I didn't think Justin Herbert was ready. But I think that after this season, I feel that Justin Herbert wants to get the college life out of his system fully first before going on to the professional life. But I think Justin Herbert will be much more prepared. I think Jalen Hurts, it would be like a dark horse in next year's draft, considering he's going He's playing for Lincoln Riley. He's playing for a much more offensive oriented team. And a lot of people are saying that Oklahoma's going to have a three-peat in the Heisman area.
Yeah. All right. Let's look again at their free agency. They had excellent free agency out of the Bridgewater signing. And my other, well, I guess they did need a backup quarterback, but Mark Ingram left in free agency, so they picked up Latavius Murray.
And actually, Drew Brees has actually been impressed. He's calling Murray and Kamara thunder and lightning.
So I see. A lot of people see Murray as a step back from Ingram, and he is to a degree. He's still a very quality running back.
But it's just his health.
Yeah. He had one year where he was really injury prone, per se. And that was back when he was with, I forget the team he was with prior to that. But he played most of the games that he was available in Minnesota. Like, he didn't really have a problem with injuries in Minnesota.
The ones I have a question about would be like Mari Edwards and Malcolm Brown, because basically just like the production meter can go either way. But I mean, I think Malcolm Brown could be a good force on the defensive line, considering what happened with Sheldon Rankins last season. And also Mari Edwards, he can add depth to defensive end position behind Cam Jordan and Marcus Davenport.
Well, you think of Malcolm Brown. Another thing about him is that he does have Super Bowl experience.
So when the lights are bright, he's a guy that can step up.
He is a 2-time champ with New England. So I mean, he's a quality defensive tackle. I'm not upset with the signing at all. But the signing that I'm most excited about is Jared Cook, and the word on the street is that they're dusting off the old Jimmy Graham playbook for Jared Cook, which, if you remember, is like Jimmy Graham was probably the best tight end in Saints history, at least from a receiving standpoint. And let's say Saints fans may hope that Drew and Jared might be, cooking up some touchdowns.
I like that. They're going to be cooking up a lot of touchdowns. This should be the year Drew Brees should win NFL MVP. He's been snubbed out of it way too many times. And here's my conspiracy. The only reason why Drew Brees has not won NFL MVP is due to the simple fact that he plays for the New Orleans Saints, and Roger Goodell don't want the Saints to be great. Do you know how many teams have done the bounty scandal? It's just the NFL sweeps under the rug. Oh, the Saints do it, but now they want to do it to the Saints. It's all conspiracy, people. It's conspiracy.
Yeah, I'd just like to see Goodell hand Drew Brees the Lombardi after that.
I mean, he's done it before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he did have that cringe, a little bit of a cringe look on. Like, no, I could see the cringe in his eyes.
Well, I think he hands it off to Drew Brees at the end of this season, and then has to cry himself to sleep for the next 7 months.
And then, and while he's crying himself to sleep, he's going to be dreaming. He's going to come up with some type of scandal or some type of way to hurt the Saints. And while he's crying himself to sleep, Saints will be partying it up. Birdman was wild last time. If you do not like traffic, look, people, if you cannot handle being around a lot of people, you cannot handle a bunch of alcohol in the air and a bunch of craziness, do not go on Bourbon Street this football season, because it's going to be wild. When the Saints beat the Colts in the Super Bowl last time they were there, Bourbon Street was ungodly.
Yeah, of course, last year you had the Boycott Bowl.
Yeah, I remember that. I think wasn't a lot of restaurants and clubs, they were playing that like the Saints Super Bowl victory against the Colts.
Yeah, and then they had a huge concert in the French Quarter, I want to say, or Jackson Square.
I remember that because the Saints were robbed. I'm not gonna go into it, but they were robbed.
Yeah,
big time. So, and not only that, it's actually gone to court.
Yeah,
to where the refs have to go through depositions.
So if New Orleans wins the Super Bowl this year, you think Drew's going to hang it up?
I think he's going to hang it up. If they win the Super Bowl, he's going to hang it up.
I really like to announce this a lot. I agree with you 100%. Because there would be absolutely no reason for Drew Brees to stick around any longer. He would have had his second title. He would have broken the touchdown record this year.
He's gonna break it this season.
I don't see him being held under 20 touchdowns.
I don't even see him getting held under 30.
Fair enough. Get back to 3-0, and leave Roger Goodell having to have dreams of getting his rocks off in New England, winning the Super Bowl.
And I actually have a bold prediction about Drew Brees. I see Drew Brees getting close to 5,000 yards passing this season. Maybe going over 5,000 yards.
And passing. Still having a good passing game or running game?
Yeah. I really think this Saints offense is going to be that explosive this season. You got Jared Cook. You got Michael Thomas. You have a really good young receiver. You got Ted Ginn, who has not slowed down despite his age. If he can stay healthy, because he was on injured reserve for most of last season. You also have guys like Traquan Smith and Keith Kirkwood. You got Alvin Kamara, you got Latavius Murray. You have a very dangerous offensive line like Teron Armstead, if he can stay healthy, Andrews Pete, Nick Easton, Larry Warford, Ryan Ramchick, Drew Brees at quarterback, who's always going to be Drew Brees every game. This offense is going to move the ball up and down the field with style and grace, and they're going to do it with ease. That offensive front is going to move defenses against their will. So this offense, I feel this offense is going to be the best offense in the league. I'm not saying because, of course, yes, I'm a Saints fan. But speaking from an analyst point of view and speaking from facts and unbiased, I'm saying that this Saints offense, as stacked as they are, one, they're coming into the season with a chip on their shoulder because they have to prove to the league why they should have been in the Super Bowl last season. So they're going to be playing with a lot of poise, and they're going to be coming with a lot of vengeance. So we're going to be seeing a much more – this is going to be the most ruthless Saints team we've seen in the history of this franchise. This is going to be the most vicious Saints team we've seen in the history of the franchise.
And, I also want to make a final statement before we close this episode out, and that is – there's a lot of talk about how tough the Saints' schedule is, and got people picking them going 10-6 or 11-5 because of it. But at the same time, I'm looking at the schedule, and it has some tough games on it. But while I don't expect the Saints to go undefeated, I don't see a single team on that schedule that they can't beat.
So you're saying their ceiling can be 16-0?
Yeah. So I put them anywhere between 13-3. And 16-0.
I'll put them anywhere between 16-0 and 14-2. I don't see them losing any more than 2 games.
I don't either. I really don't. But
but the Saints, they are going to be that resident buzzsaw in the league.
Yeah. So okay, that about wraps up our quick analysis. Quote quote, 22 minutes long. Of the New Orleans Saints, and thank you for watching, and join us next time as we talk one of the New York teams.